If anybody hasn't met me yet, I'm James from IMPICT, and on behalf of IMPICT, welcome. In the information, knowledge, and innovation economies of the 21st century, we increasingly depend on information and communication technologies, or ICT, computer stuff. Students increasingly use ICT to find their schools, to find their classes, to sign up for those classes, to get their assignments, to do their research, to complete their work, to get their grades, to send their transcripts elsewhere. Workers increasingly depend on ICT in all industries and most businesses. It's how they find their job. It's how they interact with human resources. It's how they do their work. It's how they communicate with people. It's how supply chains work. It's how customers are identified and supported. All kinds of organizations increasingly depend on ICT for their productivity. It's how we get efficiency today. It's how we develop our products. It's how all of our workers get their work done. It's how we connect with customers. And increasingly, ICT is important in society. It's how we find out about government services. It's how parents stay in touch with kids. It's how kids stay in touch with each other. It's how you find information and make use of it. But it's this really, really nutty field. It's confusing. It's chaotic. There is, it's like we deliberately don't want people to understand what it is because of the way we use words. There's technical jargon, there's marketing speak, you know, it's the latest I something or E something, and you know, I don't have Wi-Fi, I have airport, you know. It's like we're deliberately trying to confuse people. It's complex by nature, and new stuff is popping up all the time, and so there's new technologies, there's integration of old technologies, there's convergence. It evolves quickly. It's hard to keep up with. It's a tough space. But there's been a paradigm shift in the last 25 years. The world has changed. This stuff has fundamentally changed the way things work for all of us. In the US, we hear this term convergence a lot, where previously separate technologies are increasingly fewer integrated technologies. You know, what in the past was multiple devices, a pager and a cell phone and a PDA and all that, is increasingly just one device. What in the past was at least 3 different networks, voice, video, data, is increasingly a converged single-purpose network. So there's this coming together of many different separate things into one thing. And most of the rest of the world calls that one thing ICT, information and communication technologies. So the way we use that term, the way a lot of people use that term, it's just a big bucket that you put all this computer-related stuff in. Computers, software, networking, telecom, internet, programming, all of that stuff. And this is not a term that we made up. It's pretty much anywhere you go in the world that requires a passport, they use this term. It's used by the UN, it's used in the European Union, Australia, Canada, the World Bank, International Telecommunication Union. It's a common phrase in the rest of the world. So it's a superset. You know, hardware doesn't do as much without software. Software doesn't do anything without hardware. Networking is a combination of hardware and software. The internet is networking. Telecom is now networking. So all of these things are interrelated, they're interdependent. And at some level, we need to be able to think of these things all together. When we're doing public policy planning, when we're planning what educational systems do to develop the ICT workforce, we need to think about all these things together. just because we use an ICT term doesn't mean that these other terms go away. Doesn't mean that networking ceases to exist as a word or as a field. But we've got this big picture context in which we can place network. So MPICT and the ICT Center have been championing the use of this term here in our region and across the country. It's an increasingly flat world. We should line up behind something. The rest of the world uses this term. If you want a good practical reason for why to use this term, you can't Google IT, right? Every single article in the English language shows up if you search IT. So you can search ICT. And so that allows you to get to information about your field. So part of what we do is to champion the importance of ICT. And we've been aggregating things together, doing labor studies, talking about how important this stuff is for economic growth and development at all levels, for workforce development. We need people who can do this stuff if we're going to realize the benefits of ICT throughout society. Within the educational context, the world has changed. We need to think about use of ICT in how education functions and how we deliver instruction. And for society, because we really need to be behind this paradigm shift. So we're funded by the National Science Foundation. The Advanced Technological Education Group is focused on the applied technology domain. So the technicians, people who go out and touch real gear in the real world. Community colleges play an important role with that. They develop more of that hands-on workforce than the four-year colleges and universities. So NSF acknowledges that through this ATE program. And there are quite a few of the ATE centers and funded organizations that have come together for this event. So MPICT people in the room, raise your hand. So there's Craig, Steve, Olivia, there are others. I think most of us have a red, whatever this is, lanyard on. So find us and talk to us. The ICT Center, there's Gordon, Baytech, Deborah, Cassia, they couldn't make it here. They're security oriented from Chicago. Cyberwatch, Casey, I saw you earlier. IWITS, Donna, Geotech, Bill. So we're not isolated. There's a community of these NSF-funded centers around the country, and we share information with each other. We're all sort of focused on the same thing, which is to improve technical education at community colleges. So, big picture standpoint, it's bleak out there, right? Can we agree on that? These hard times. Anybody sad to see 2011 go? No, probably not. It's been a rotten economy. It's been particularly bad for education. There's been funding cuts just over and over again. We're beleaguered. We have to argue for just keeping our programs alive. They're cutting classes. They're cutting people. It's a rotten climate, and we can feel bad about that. There's a human reaction to that, right? We all hunker down, we cower, we feel bad, we're afraid, we're reluctant to make decisions. We're not going to innovate. We're not going to take on new projects. It's a climate of anxiety and bad feeling, right? That's the world that we operate in. Well, I'm going to argue that we should take a different attitude. And it's based on, in part, labor market information, some studies we've done. A year ago we did this study. Some of you are familiar with it. We used the ICT framework for the first time here in California. What does it look like if we aggregate all this stuff in one big bucket and look at how big an important industry is in California, ICT industry? How big and important is ICT employment? if we don't think of telecom as something different from software development, as something different from networking, we just put all this stuff in together. Well, in California, it turns out ICT industries are big and important. Intuitively, we kind of know that, but it's 4% of all companies in the state, 6% of private sector revenues, 4% of the workforce, but 12% of private sector wages. Number two, as an industry sector in private sector wages paid, if you look at this as an aggregation. They pay, twice the average. ICT industry jobs pay twice the average. And these industries are doing well. They're growing. So this, I'll just give you one of these, just to show the point. If you look at these aggregations of industry at a 2-digit NAICS code level, the closest thing to ICT is down there where that blue arrow is, where it says information. And so if you're a policymaker and you're looking at a list, what are the big industries in California? Well, first of all, information's about halfway down the list. And if you look, the light green shaded stuff is what we consider ICT. That's the technical domain. Also in that category are a bunch of things like newspapers that are doing bad. Newspapers are shrinking, and that makes that industry segment, information, look like it's not performing well. When in fact, if you look at the light green, the red arrow in the third line, aggregated ICT in terms of wages paid would be number 2 in the state. So there's a strategic reason for using the ICT aggregate, because things rise up higher in the list. They get more attention from policymakers and planners. And that's one of the things we've been doing strategically. Does anybody recognize that? That's the bridge of the original Star Trek Enterprise. 25, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we thought that was pretty cool, right? That motivated a lot of us to do things. Every single thing on that bridge exists today. All of the communication devices, the sensors, the controls, the commands, the video interface, all that's here already. And some of the guys down in the other sections are doing as well, but warp drive, those guys are way behind. Transporter technologies, those guys, they're slackers. But in the ICT domain, we're killing it, right? We're doing good stuff. We should feel good about that. It's exciting. Anybody see this one? Call of Duty 3, $775 million in sales in its first 5 days. 5 days. So this trilogy now has already earned more than $6 billion worldwide. Compare that to Lord of the Rings. That's something we all think of as huge, right? $3 billion, more than twice the gross revenues worldwide. So far from a geek-produced product, right? We're doing great. So by the end of the first day, gamers had already logged 7 million hours of play on this title. Wow. I mean, that's mind-blowing. This is in this miserable climate, this bad economy that we're all talking about. This is an out-of-the-park home run. And this is us. This is the geeks that are doing this. These are good jobs, and this is fun, and people are getting excited about it. Richest Americans in 2011. Everybody recognizes those names. Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, thank you Microsoft for hosting this space for us today. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, for you guys. Larry Ellison at Oracle, Amazon, Dell, Google guys. 40% of the top 20 richest Americans are from this ICT domain. So you're looking for heroes, you're looking for motivation to enter this field. Well, here it is. You can be very, very successful in this space. And speaking of heroes, everybody knows who this is, Steve Jobs. most influential people in the world. The man has changed business forever. How he changed our world. That's inspiring. This is a hero. For me, this is basically a rich hippie who changed the world. That's what I want to be when I grow up. So that's, it's an exciting space. It's doing great. #1 Christmas holiday gift, iPad 2. So yay for ICT, right? This is not a bad thing. This student is doing great. This stuff is cool, and you're involved in it. Good for you. Who's heard this one? All the IT jobs went to China and India. I'll tell you what the appropriate response to that is. And I'm from the South. Balderdash. It's absolute nonsense. So do this with me. So all the IT jobs went to China and India. And how do we respond? Balderdash. Yeah. So ICT employment is not just limited to ICT industries. It's not just the software companies. It's not just the hardware companies. It's not the service providers alone. ICT employment exists in every industry. Every organization has an IT department. Biotech would not exist as an industry without ICT. Where would financial services be without online trading systems and massive databases and security systems? Healthcare is an area where ICT is really just being applied appropriately now. That's not a new field, that's just ICT. ICT employment's everywhere. So we wanted to look at it, this aggregate ICT employment, no matter where it exists. 1 in 20 jobs in the US. 1 in 20 jobs in the US today, and they're growing fast. So this is a huge area. Same thing in California, 1 in 20 jobs in 2010. 12% employment growth, 130,000 new jobs between 2006 and 16. They pay twice the median wage. 8th largest occupational cluster by job count. This is not small, this is not unimportant. This is a huge area of employment, and it's strategically important. So we went out, we talked to more than 600 companies in California. 80% of them agree or strongly agree that ICT is important to the productivity of their organizations. So overall estimates for employment growth, 3.8% over 2 years. That's consistent with everything we've seen in the past. ICT companies expect 8.5% employment growth. Non-ICT expected to be flat over the next 2 years. So ICT is doing well. Companies that offer ICT goods and services are performing well relative to others. So ICT companies expect 11.2% growth in their ICT workforce, even though they expect overall only 8.5% employment growth. So within ICT industry, ICT workforce is doing better than other categories of jobs. Non-ICT companies, flat overall growth, they're still expecting 3.7% overall growth, ICT workforce growth. Amazingly, even in this miserable climate, over half of all firms report difficulty finding appropriately skilled workers in the ICT domain. That's a call to arms, isn't it? That's amazing. With the number of unemployed people we have today, that there are employers who can't find workers. That's messed up. We got to fix that. So this is a Robert Half salary guide for 2012. Just look down the right column. This is the percentage change in starting salaries in the U.S. across a whole bunch of different ICT categories. The point is, they're all up. The salaries commanded for all of these ICT roles are up year over year. This is a good time to be an ICT worker. And it's not that everyone has to have an advanced degree to work in this field. In California, half of the firms do not require a bachelor degree for at least half their workforce, their ICT workforce. So the macro economy is miserable, it's bad, it's ugly out there. We could be feeling despair and just crumple up with anxiety. But if we focus on our field, ICT, I would argue that it's actually pretty rosy times, and we should feel good about it. So let's focus on what we do, which is to help people be successful in this space. And let's be positive about it, because it really is a good time. So we also did a phase 3 workforce study this summer that came out, basically taking it to the next level. We looked at workforce demand here in California, 1.2 million workers, 30,000 new jobs through 80,000 job openings, high wages, same basic outcomes we saw before. But we've got work to do. This is a chaotic space. So we use one of these real-time labor market information services that crawl the public internet, and they aggregate the job postings from job boards and employer sites and headhunters, recruiters. We had them look at one market here in California. More than 2,000 total job listings, 2,380 total job listings. 1,928 had unique job titles, right? Even those that have the same job title have different job descriptions. So how do we as educators make sense of that? How do we figure out what the demand is for knowledge and skills in the ICT workforce? It's hard. Here in California, more than 500,000 enrollments in ICT courses every year. But you look at the supply. As part of the study, we looked at the ICT programs in 48 California community colleges in the IMPICT region. 129 different academic departments had 93 different names. When you look at the degrees, 303 different associate level degrees, 263 unique degree titles. In the certificate area, 606 certificates, 522 unique titles. That's not serving us well, because when you're an employer, I'm going to hire somebody for a job. I'm collecting resumes. I get a resume that says degree or certificate and computer something or another. I have no idea what that person knows and can do. So that's devaluing all of these academic credentials. We need to have some sort of a common standard for what it is that we're developing and producing as educators. But in short, this labor market is chaos. It really is, the supply side and the demand side is just a free-for-all. And we need to do better with that. There's a problem in this space that I call the Tower of Babel, and that is people can't communicate about ICT because there's so many different words and they have different meanings to different people. And people's perspectives are so different. This stuff is pervasive, it's everywhere. And my perspective as a small employer is very different from the perspective of a large employer or somebody in a different industry or somebody who's focused on this particular technology or on the development of technology versus its implementation. So we think we're having communication about this space, but we're not. There's this Tower of Babel effect, just this blather that's going on, and we can't make productive progress in this area. Remember the parable about the blind people in the elephant. So they all touch the elephant in a different place, and they try to describe what they've encountered, and they all describe something fundamentally different. It's like a snake, it's like a tree. Well, we have that problem in ICT. And part of what we've been trying to do recently is to help develop tools that make communication more effective about this space. One of the areas where there's confusion is about ICT in education. So we talk about IT or ICT in education, and there's a whole bunch of different dimensions to that, and they get jumbled up and confused with each other. One is to use ICT to improve the efficiency of school operations. So we need a better HR department. We need better management software. We need to implement these technologies so that we operate more efficiently as enterprises, as schools. There's the idea that we need to use ICT to improve teaching and learning. It doesn't matter what field we're talking about. We need to engage students. We need to involve them with technology so that the experience is better and the learning improves. There's the dimension of digital literacy, which is everybody needs to know how to use this stuff now. It's as important as reading and writing and arithmetic. So there needs to be some competency that we develop for everybody so that they can be successful in life. There's the ICT traditional academic dimension, which is preparing people for baccalaureate and higher degrees with deep understanding of transfer pathways, understanding scientific principles and so forth. But then there's also workforce preparation. So developing technicians, people for hands-on roles. And to be able to segment these conversations, I think is helpful for being able to move ahead productively. We've used this ICT pyramid effectively to talk about depth of knowledge and skills. So at the base here is the user level, and that's a big group. Everybody's a user today. Everybody needs to be able to do something with these technologies. The line just above it represents entry level into the field. This is people who know how to use computers well enough to help other users, help desk roles, technical support people, people who help users make good use of these technologies. The middle layer is enablers, the applied technology domain, people who touch gear. They go out and install mature technologies in the real world so that we realize the benefit of that. This is the IT operations of all kinds of organizations. And at the top of the pyramid is the creator domain, R&D, people who are innovating, advancing the field, developing new technologies. Between the creators and the enablers, there's a line which represent the interaction between creators and their customers. So sales people, sales engineers, technical support specialists, people who help design customer solutions, who get requirements and specifications. But again, ICT isn't just limited to ICT industries, it's in every industry. So we tweaked this just a little bit because there's some industry-specific stuff. If you're in the energy world, you may need to know something about SCADA. If you're in financial services, you need to understand about trading systems. If you're in healthcare, you need to know something about health records, about regulatory requirements for that industry. There's enterprise-specific stuff. And there's the phenomenon of technology migration. So desktop publishing is a good example of that. That starts out as something in the creator domain, R&D. Only very specialized people develop this new capability to do publishing electronically. It gets pushed out into jobs, and there is a Department of Labor job classification for desktop publishers. But the numbers in that category are dropping. Does that mean desktop publishing is going away? No. It means that those skills are now available to users. So you no longer have a job called desktop publishing. You do desktop publishing as a part of your job, whatever that other job is. So technology is being pushed down through this model, if you will. And we found this tool very effective, a good way to talk about different levels of knowledge and skills. So again, here at the base level, users, digital literacy, everybody. See, potentially a huge issue for education. So, by the time you get out of K-12, you should have this stuff, right? You should know how computers operate. You should be able to do research. You should be able to use networks. If you don't get it, community college should remediate. And that means lots and lots of students for the departments that you all work in. At the top of the level, the innovator domain, it's really kind of simple. And this is a lot like the Venn diagram that you had, Steve. It's a combination of hardware and software knowledge with business skills. So let's find a problem, a business opportunity, and let's apply our hardware and software and business and management knowledge to create a solution for that, which we're then going to sell. This is the engine of innovation. This is what drives Silicon Valley. And it's really kind of simple conceptually. When it gets into the real world, though, it gets really chaotic, because the real world is this universe of all the stuff that's been created by the innovators over time. And you're in the real world IT operation of your enterprise. You got to try to make sense of all this stuff. What am I going to use? Who do I have to have? How am I going to organize myself so that my organization gets the benefit of all of these technologies that have been developed? So it's messy, it's chaotic at the IT operation level. It's complex, it changes constantly. It's like trying to identify, the composition of a spinning, through tools that are inadequate. And that's a challenge for us, because most of us are at the community college level. So what is the technology that we need to be teaching people? I don't know. Today it's one thing, tomorrow it's another thing. How do we keep it? It's hard. So here's a little model that we've used to try to communicate input from lots and lots of business and industry people about what they're looking for from education and ICT workforce development. And at the bottom of that is a strong academic foundation: reading, writing, arithmetic, knowledge of how the world works, history. They expect that. So creativity, business fundamentals. But there's a component of this that they're asking for today that we haven't dealt with yet. And that again is at digital literacy level. And there's probably three components of that. There's technical knowledge and skills. That's the ICT literacy. There's the ability to do research, information literacy, and those efforts are going strong. The library-based groups have been pushing that forward, and that works pretty well. There's also digital media literacy, the ability to communicate effectively through these media. And there's work that needs to be done. This needs to be built into our academic foundation. That second level is called a bunch of different things: soft, professional, personal, workplace effectiveness skills. This is a lot of the stuff that Steve talked about. And this is a whole dimension of conversation. It comes up in every single conversation with business and industry people. We've got to deliver this somehow. People are coming out of school without it too frequently. So how are we going to develop a work ethic in people? An ability to show up on time, a call if you're going to be late, having reasonable expectations about what's going to happen when you hit the workplace, being flexible, taking responsibility for your ongoing growth, being able to get the information you need to make decisions, being able to help decision makers make decisions. All of these kinds of things are important, and we have to change the way we teach if we're going to make this happen. Because chalk and talk lecture doesn't do it. There's no multiple choice tests in the real world. So again, at the center of this diagram is all the technologies, all these different things that are getting implemented. And IBM talks a lot about a T-shaped individual. So from a technology perspective, you need some broad understanding of a whole bunch of different technologies, because you've got to work together with teams of people that have expertise in these other areas. You have to know what they know. You have to know what they can do. But you also need a unique value add, some sort of depth in one technical domain. The big red box on the outside is you need people who can participate in the real world, who understand the industry that you operate in and the culture that you exist in. They're culturally sensitive. They understand how to interact with customers and suppliers. They understand that there is a regulatory domain, a legal dimension to what you do. The first circle on the inside is you need people who understand organizational mission and culture, who know what we're here to do and can figure out some way to add value to that in what they do in that workplace. And then the center circle is the IT operation itself. So the IT operation is organized to accomplish something. It's to provide that infrastructure for the entire organization. So how do you do that? How do you keep track of your technology? How do you serve your users? How do you make business decisions? How do you manage your efforts? So good times for ICT as an industry, good times for ICT employment. But we need to be smarter about what we do as ICT educators. We need to apply some leverage. Right now, everybody's kind of doing their own thing at every different school, and that's really inefficient. We're all having to start flat-footed from scratch and make up something that's fundamentally different from what everyone else is doing. So let's line up. We've got to change the way we do things. And that's part of what this event is an opportunity to share, to get out of our little silos and share stories. So from the perspective of industry, here's resources that they offer to make our jobs easier. So Cisco Academy, NetApp is here, Citrix, Microsoft. There's a bunch of industry-driven efforts that provide resources of use for educators. Those are the ones, if you'll get out your agenda from your folder and take a look at that. It's really extraordinary. And this is the stone soup that you've all put together by offering your presentations and wisdom. Those that are shaded orange are from business and industry in some fashion. Those that are shaded pink are focused on issues related to improving diversity in ICT education and workforce. This is a problem. As this workforce becomes more and more important and larger, the only way we're going to meet the needs is if we're drawing from all the different segments of our society. And we're not right now. We need to do a better job attracting and serving and helping people be successful in ICT from all kinds of different backgrounds. Those that are shaded green are from the educator community. And there's great stuff here. You know, we can't all do everything well. There's too much if we're responsible for creating everything from scratch. So let's learn from each other. Let's share. You know, if you're doing something really, really well, I can learn from that in any way. And I'll share with you the thing that I'm doing really, really well. And we all benefit in the process. So I would point out a little change that's just happened. What was room 619 downstairs is now room 610. And what was room 610, where we are going to have lunch, is now 612. So you may want to just mark that down on your agenda or figure it out when you get downstairs. We are just going to go down one floor to San Francisco State University. They've got some real nice classrooms down there. And I think you're going to like that space. We're very, very pleased to have a collaborative relationship with Blaine and CCC Confer. CCC Confer, for those of you not familiar with it, basically it's an online collaboration tool that's offered free to all California community colleges through a grant that Blaine put together. It uses the Blackboard Collaborate platform, which is like WebEx or Adobe Connect. So if you are a presenter, try to show up 10 minutes early before your presentation so you can work it out with the facilitator in your room to make available your presentation in real time to people over the internet, and also to record or archive that presentation for future viewing. We can't all be in all of these presentations. And this is a way of expanding the impact of this event beyond those relatively few who can be in the room to lots of different people. If anybody does not want to do that, that's fine. Just tell your technical facilitator, I'd rather not record this or make it available over the internet. No big deal. But do try to get there early so you can work it out with them. Inevitably, there's a few glitches with technology when you do something like that. If that happens, be patient. Network with each other. Routinely, people tell us when they attend events like this that the connections that you make with each other are among the most valuable components. There's a fabulous group of people right here in this room. Peers, subject matter experts, people who do what you do, who have connections that could be valuable to you. So get to know each other. To facilitate that, we're going to have a little happy hour event tonight. At 5:30, Cengage Learning has generously offered the booze, which we can't pay for with NSF money. So there's beer and wine and some snack food. We're going to go around the corner to the City College of San Francisco downtown campus, which when we go downstairs, you go right to 4th Street and then right down to Mission. It's catty corner from the Sony Metreon. It's right by the big Jukebox Marriott Hotel. There on the ground floor is a restaurant called the Educator Palette. It's run by the students in the culinary arts program there. But, that's a good opportunity to connect and relax and debrief and get to know each other. So there's one thing that we all have in common in this room, and that is a belief that ICT and ICT education and ICT workforce development is important. And it's good to have that common ground, some reason to work with each other. And that's the ideal that unifies us. So one of the things that came from our study was that about half of California companies didn't know or had no opinion about whether community colleges are doing a good job developing the ICT workforce. So that's a challenge. That's something that we need to do a better job with. We need to be less chaotic in what we offer and do a better job communicating what we do. For those of you who are from business and industry, I didn't even know what a community college was 5 years ago. I'm a business guy myself, and I stumbled across the community college mission and just realized that it's important. If we need ICT knowledge and skills in our society to advance, to move forward, community colleges are the most cost-effective way to push those knowledge and skills out there in our communities. California is $26 a unit. So for less than $100, you can take that same class. It's going up to 46. This is the last time I have to say that. Painful. But still, so what does that mean? Less than $150 for that same class. It's going to cost you $2,500 with global knowledge and one of the commercial providers. The mission is so diverse. It's anything from a bright high school student who wants to get a leg up to someone very late in their career who needs to retool. There's a surprising number of students in these programs that already have a bachelor, a master's, even a PhD degree, who come to the community college because it's an affordable way to keep up with technology change. So community college is not just junior college, it's not just remediation. In the ICT domain, it plays a really important role. So we would encourage your engagement with community college ICT education. We think this is important. Evaluation is important to us. You'll find in your package a little evaluation form. Please try to complete that before you leave. And you can trade that in for a raffle ticket. We have a raffle at the very end of our event. There's also a raffle tonight at the reception. There's a card for that in your name badge. So, you know, the point is not we care what our grade is as much as we'd like input from you and what we can be doing with NSF centers and how to make events like this better in the future. So for those of you in the IPIC region and from California anywhere, I just point out our faculty development week dates are now out. This is a week-long training session where you learn new technology or new ways of teaching. We're doing one in Southern California the week of June 11th and one in Northern California the week of June 25th. Also, everybody know what RSA is, the security conference here in San Francisco? Well, they're doing something a little different this year. They're going to build a studio in the Moscone Center and broadcast out from that sessions that they do with experts from the field. And they've made an offer to us, which we can offer to you, to become the studio audience for that series of shows. So if you as a teacher and if you would like to bring your students to be the studio audience at the RSA show, email Becky, and there's a flyer out on the reception table. You can grab that. It's pretty cool. You get a free expo pass too. So very pleased about that. And then just again, you know, welcome. I'm so glad that everyone's come out. The weather's produced for us here. It's gorgeous in San Francisco. I hope you'll be able to enjoy the city some this evening and over the weekend. You know, again, it's bleak times out there, but it's a good time for ICT. It's a good time for ICT education. It's a good time for ICT learners. So we got into this because we're passionate about technology, because we're passionate about helping students be successful, build good lives for themselves. And those opportunities exist right now. They're as good as they've ever been. So let's feel good about what we do. Take advantage of this event. Let's learn from each other. Let's make good connections. And thank you for coming.